The Offshore Pro Tour fleet returns to Marathon to do battle in the waters of the Gulf of Mexico and the unpredictable Atlantic. The finest offshore racers in the world quicken the pulse in the heart of the Florida Keys. From ESPN, it's the Offshore Professional Tour. The Florida Keys and Key West present the 1992 Marathon Offshore Challenge. Hello everyone, I'm Brian Trevor, along with Mark Spencer, Associate Editor of Powerboat Magazine. It's quiet here right now, but soon enough the thunder of these powerful boats will be heard. And Mark, we've already started this event off with a bang.
That's right, Brian. Dan Campbell, the winner of the season opener a few weeks ago in Cocoa Beach, he's out. Tragic accident and pre-event testing. Brian, one of the things that makes offshore racing unique is that the driver has his hands on the steering wheel and the throttle man has his hands on the throttles. What happened here? The driver made a sudden right-hand turn without the throttle man being aware of what he was going to do. The boat hooked right very hard as they were trying to maneuver out of some shallow water, and this is the end result. Just a tough break for the Cobra Power team.
The Coast Guard moving in to monitor the situation as the emergency medical people taking the injured crewman off the boat, resting on the bottom in the shallow water. Dave Hamill, the most seriously injured of the bunch, taken to nearby Fisherman's Hospital. The diagnosis on him: punctured lung, broken ribs. He will not be racing an offshore powerboat this weekend. The good news for owner Dan Campbell is that the water is shallow and the boat did not go completely out of sight.
We were really looking forward to the race tomorrow, but this is tough, man. I think I'm voodooed here in Marathon, but I'll tell you what, if I could get that boat ready, I'd be out there tomorrow. I don't think the doctors would let me do it, but I'd sure like to. It's virtually impossible. We have a severely damaged race boat, so it's been tough, but I'll be back next year.
Something tells me we haven't seen the end of Dan Campbell yet.
No, all this did was light a fire. I'm ready to go, so I just want to get my crew healed up, and if there's any way, we'll be in Sarasota loaded for bear.
Another byproduct of the accident, Dan Campbell after this race had his sights set on Tom Gentry's 148.23 kilo record in the Superboat class. Those plans will have to be put on hold.
Certainly a tough break for Dan Campbell and the Cobra Power crew, Mark, but we've still got a race to run.
That's right, we do. It is a tough break for Dan, but two of the fastest cats in the world remain. Russ Wilkin in the Powerboat Marine, Joe Mock in the Dirty Laundry. They both got a lot of top-end speed.
And what about the open class?
In the open class, you got to look for that tough Viking, Shell Roki. He won the season opener in Cocoa Beach. A couple of 40-foot Douglas skaters are evenly matched. Recovery, you're going to have a good race there.
And in stark contrast to the conditions, Mark, from Cocoa Beach, there we had 8-foot beam seas and high winds. Here, calm winds, and it's just about like glass. Very high attrition rate, as you know, Brian, in Cocoa Beach. And although the water's smooth here in Marathon, the attrition rate could also be high. High temperatures, a lot of horsepower, a lot of guys running fast, a lot of motors could break out there on the race course today. The sun getting a little higher in the sky. We're getting ready for the start, and a very interesting layout here in Marathon. The interesting factor about this race course is it takes the boats from the relatively calm Gulf of Mexico into the unpredictable waters of the Atlantic. The fleet starts off the Ferro Blanco Lighthouse and races west along the 7-mile bridge for 3 miles in the Gulf of Mexico. At Moser Channel, the boats turn south through the bridge into the Atlantic Ocean. It's then out to sea in checkpoints 2 and 3 near Sombrero Light. The fleet heads back through the 7-mile bridge into the protected waters of the Gulf to complete a lap of 21¼ miles. The super and open boats must make a total of 7 laps to complete today's 148.75-mile race. And Mother Nature smiling down on those cockpits today in the form of hot tropical sunshine, and that is going to make things even more difficult in this race. We'll be right back with the start. Stay with us. This telecast of the 1992 Marathon Offshore Challenge is sponsored by The Florida Keys and Key West. Now is the time to just let go in the Keys. By Sunoco, when split seconds count, you can count on Sunoco race fuels. And by Budweiser, the king of beers. With that clean, crisp, cold taste, nothing beats a Bud. Welcome back to the Marathon Offshore Challenge. We're just getting ready to start. The boats are heading out to the milling area. The flag is getting ready to drop. Let's take a look at the lineups.
Can't tell the players without a scorecard. In the Superboat class, the lineup, the favorite, Dirty Laundry, Joe Mock and Smitty Smith. Powerboat Marine, Russ Wilkin and Tony Caligiuri, a twin-engine boat against the four-engine Dirty Laundry. Moving to the V-Bottoms, Apache Kid, Alan Feingold and Jerry Davis. Another V-Bottom, In Excess, Ted Savarese and Trace Martin. The lineup in the open class, a good shootout today. Heavy Metal, Anthony Izzo and Rick Conti. Another Cougar cat to keep your eye on, Brian, Ugo Colombo and Jeff Sofer in the Budweiser. Hyperactive, Tom Slameka and Dave Cutler. Craig Berry and Chris Sestero in the Cigarette Hawk. Joey Imprescio will throttle. Stuart Ham's recovery. Sick Nick Kasula will be behind the wheel. The only diesel-powered boat in the race, the Intrepid, Yashiro Katami on the gas sticks. The winner of the first race, looking to make it 2 in a row, Shel Roki and Jim Dyke in the Spirit of Norway. Lauren Leibel and Richie Powers, 2 veterans in the Labatt's. Ohio Steel, John Revin and Reggie Fountain, probably the fastest V-Bottom in the race.
And the field jockeying for position behind the pace boat from Everglades Marina, driven by Norval Staley out there leading the whole field. That'll end as soon as the green flag drops, Mark.
Let's go on board in the Dirty Laundry. Joe Mock trying to get that big 50-foot coupe catamaran up on plane, get all 4 engines in sync, pack some air up underneath that boat, so he's got a good shot at the start.
He's riding in the wake of some of the boats out in front, and look at Ohio Steel. They parked that one right on the transom of the pace boat.
Brian, unlike automobile racing where they qualify for lanes, in offshore racing it's a virtual free-for-all. It's catch as catch can. You maneuver for position right at the start based on who's got the most muscle.
Now the green flag is down and the V-hull boat's jumping out to the early lead here, Mark.
The V-hulls have a clear advantage at the start. They can get all that weight moving a lot quicker because they do not rely on hydrodynamics to lift the boat. The cats need a lot of space. They got to pack some air under the boat, get it to fly. Look for those 2 V-bottoms to set the early pace.
Now we're on board the Spirit of Norway. This was the winner in the open class in the first race of the season in Cocoa Beach. And Shel Roki, Jim Dyke, these guys looking for another win, as you mentioned earlier, Mark.
Another interesting wrinkle here in Marathon with the super and open boats starting together. It's going to give us a real clear picture of how the boats match up because some of the open boats can run with the super boats. Powerboat Marine goes right to the front, but here comes Dirty Laundry.
Joe Mock with the hammer down, and they're actually Smitty Smith's the guy on the gas sticks, and he has pushed him right down as far as they will go. He's got some air under the boat, getting it up on plane. He's passing people like they're backing up.
148 long miles to go. Smitty Smith, he's playing it cool right now. Joe Mock as he makes an inside move on the Spirit of Norway.
Another good look at Joe Mock. He's driving the boat. Sitting to his left is Smitty Smith on the gas sticks. He is going right by everybody out there, showing his stuff with that powerful boat.
Offshore racing used to be considered such a lonely sport. You kind of marched to your own drummer as you went from checkpoint to checkpoint. Now with the new lap-style courses, the activity's a lot higher. The boats run deck to deck. Great excitement as we see Joe Mock blow right by Intrepid as he also moves by Reggie Fountain in the Ohio Steel.
Joe Mock getting the job done out there in the open water. He's got a lot of power to draw from. Smitty Smith sitting closer to the camera. Here's Powerboat Marine. These guys running in the open water too. Notably absent, though, is Tom Gentry and the Gentry Eagle. Earlier, our correspondent Jim Hendrick caught up with him.
Talk about a world traveler. He comes from Honolulu to race here in the OPT circuit. But I understand now for the next few races, your history. Why?
Well, that's right, Jim. We're going to Seville, Spain to meet the Aga Khan. He's trying to break our transatlantic speed record.
When did you set that record?
Well, that was about 4 years ago.
And you beat it by quite a few hours, didn't you?
Well, we knocked 18 hours off the record, so we now hold it at 62 hours, and I think he's got a job, but he's going to give it a try.
I understand he's spending like $40 million to break your record?
That's right. He's got some real equipment, and I wish him luck.
Brian, let's turn the calendar back 3 long years ago. Tom Gentry, in one of the most amazing accomplishments in all of motorsports history, went across the Atlantic Ocean in 2 days, 14 hours and 7 minutes, non-stop, a lot of danger, a lot of endurance on both the part of the driver and the crew.
Refueling out on the open ocean, no easy task. A beautiful piece of equipment that Tom Gentry and his crew managed to knock 18 hours off the previous record. Now he's on his way to see if the Aga Khan and Cubic Dollars can do the same to him. Here's the open class leader, Ohio Steel. They got the jump on everybody at the very start of the race. Now they're leading their class. And there's the crew, John Revin, Reggie Fountain, the builder, on the gas sticks. What's their strategy?
We're going to run flat out and try to burn their engines up, because the cats are hard on motors, and we've got those big blower motors in for Mercury, and they're about the best you can buy in the world. And we're going to press them as hard as we can, hopefully. A cat's a lot harder on an engine than a V-bottom, so we're going to try to blow their motors up.
Reggie Fountain continues to amaze. This isn't supposed to happen, a V-bottom leading the cats in smooth water, but it is.
Here's the recovery boat, one of the catamarans that he's trying to blow up, in his words, and strong words they are. This is Kasula driving Stuart Hayham's boat. They're out in the open water. It is just dead flat smooth out there. Spirit of Norway, Shell Roki driving Jim Dyke on the throttles, and these guys seem to be just holding back a little bit, but man, is that boat running smooth, Mark.
It's time to go. Spirit of Norway said, we're not going to take this anymore. They move right by the Intrepid as they want to go up and take a look at the leaders, Recovery and Ohio Steel.
Now this is a boat in the open class capable of challenging for an overall victory, even though they're down on length and power on some of the super boats.
You know, when you look at the danger factor in offshore racing, sometimes you might think it's more dangerous in the rough water because the boats are flying and bashing and crashing all around. But I talked to Jim Dyke before this race, and he had a look of concern on his face. When it's smooth water, the throttles go down, the speeds are way up, and the drivers just don't want to back off. They run really close together, and actually, Brian, smooth water can be considerably more dangerous than it is in rough water. Here's one of the challenging parts of the course as they move underneath the 7-mile bridge, a very narrow passing lane in here.
They actually have a no passing zone as the boats chicane down to go underneath the bridge. There's a return lane coming in the opposite direction. A few pilings down, they pass under the bridge twice. Now here are the two catamaran boats, Spirit of Norway and Recovery, running on either side of the wake of Ohio Steel, a V-hull boat leading the open class.
Interesting matchup here between these two boats. They're both identically prepared 40-foot skaters. The only real difference between the two boats, in the Spirit of Norway, are Merc Cruiser's 800-plus engines. Recovery runs some motors out of the Keith Eichert shop. That's the only difference. Two immaculately prepared boats. They're both beautifully rigged. They got a lot of speed, but they can't figure out why in the world they haven't made a move on Reggie Fountain in the Ohio Steel. This is not supposed to happen as they come up on his transom, taking a look-see.
And the superboat leader, Powerboat Marine, taking a look-see at Sombrero Light on the outbound side of the course. This is where the water is supposed to be rough, but even out here in the Atlantic Ocean, things are mighty smooth. Now don't go away. We'll be right back. Things are just starting to heat up. Welcome back to the Marathon Offshore Challenge, and we're going to have a change of leader right here as Joe Mock and Smitty Smith power right by the Powerboat Marine boat, passing him just before the no passing zone as they head into the 7-mile bridge going back.
Joe Mock and Smitty Smith, they've been real tight-lipped about just how fast this boat is. The question is now being answered. Once they got things ironed out, once they got the boat up on plane and got their sea legs, they made a big-time move by Powerboat Marine. They're the new race leader, averaging speeds about 109, 110 miles an hour. We're right in the cockpit there with Joe Mock.
Joe Mock kind of tenderfooting it around a little bit of a right-hand bend in the course here. The course very well defined a lot of the ways along the line because, well, there's a big spectator fleet. A lot of pleasure boats anchored. Now here comes Powerboat Marine edging back into the picture and challenging, saying, okay, Joe Mock, try to make my day.
Joe Mock kind of gives a little look-see over his right shoulder, sees Russ Wilkin and Tony Caligieri pull up on him, and right now it's a cat-and-mouse game. Looks like Dirty Laundry wants the lead. They say, here we go, Powerboat Marine, eat a little wake.
Now Smitty Smith on the throttles. This is probably the nicest piece of hardware that he's ever had his hands on. A very impressive piece of machinery.
I think this boat ought to be really exciting to watch. I know everybody that has watched the other Dirty Laundry boat over the last couple seasons has seen some pretty exciting stuff there, and we're not doing that intentionally, I assure you. I'd like to have a tranquil ride, but this boat has a very large tunnel, and that makes the boat think it's lighter when it's running, and that's one of the ways that we feel we can run with less horsepower and still have a very competitive boat.
And there's the Dirty Laundry boat really taking it easy around that tight turn at the end as Powerboat Marine, a smaller and more agile boat, cuts him right off on the inside.
What you're looking at, Brian, is a 40-foot twin-engine Douglas Skater on the inside, a 50-foot four-engine Coupe on the outside, and there's just no question that Russ Wilkin and Tony Caligiuri have a clear edge in the turns. The top speed advantage on the straightaways, it goes to Dirty Laundry.
A lot of difference in their strategy for these guys.
Well, normally the bigger boats are more vulnerable when they're clear full of fuel at the start of the race. So you have to decide then, are you going to try to set the pace and run off if you can, or are you just going to lay and wait? So it's definitely two different strategies there. And usually, in all honesty, it's not decided till the flag drops, and then we decide what we want to do.
They know what they want to do now. They want to get going fast. They got a little edge coming out of the turn. They want to try to build on that as much as they can, because every time they look in the rear view mirror, all they see is a red 50-foot coupe. Powerboat Marine down a little bit on their average speed here on the second lap, 106 compared to 108 on the first go-around.
Dirty Laundry, they're not looking exactly like they ought to be in the water here, Mark. What's going on?
That picture-perfect ride attitude we saw earlier, it's not there anymore, Brian. They're down on power. The bow's up and the transom's down.
Here's the open class battle. Spirit of Norway side by side with Ohio Steel, but out in front, it's the recovery boat. This is Joey Imprescia on the throttle, sick Nick Casula behind the wheel. It's Stuart Hayham's brand new boat, but Stuart once again isn't here. In the first race of the season, his son was scared, didn't want Dad to go out in the rough water, and now Stuart Hayham's father is very ill back home, so Joey Imprescia, the crew chief, doing double duty. He's also on the throttles.
It's a tremendous effort on my half, because I'm responsible for everything now, not just 60 or 70% of it. And I got to do the right thing for Stuart. He's looking for the black and white again, but he's left the responsibilities to me, and I feel there's a lot of confidence in him.
You can throw a blanket around the three leaders in the open class recovery. They're in first place, but only 10 boat lengths behind Spirit of Norway and a surprising competitor, Ohio Steel, Reggie Fountain and John Ribbon. They are really making an impressive performance here in this V-bottom. The key to their success, setup.
Well, it's a number of things, but it's the bottom design, the way we do our pad on the boat, set back transom, lifting straight whips, and then just the general setup on the boats. From a top speed point of view, today in the calmer water, we could use a little more horsepower than we've got. We don't have quite as much as we've run in the past, but we've got some real good engines in the boat that'll last. So I guess we're going to go on dependability rather than sheer speed this go around.
Dependability, heck. Right now, Reggie Fountain in a deck-to-deck battle with Spirit of Norway. He's averaging 106, 107, 108. As we go on board, the Spirit of Norway, that bright red boat, setting a very, very hot pace.
Shell Roki and his throttle man, Jim Dyke, these guys against the old trickster, Reggie Fountain, and so far they're getting the best of it.
I think what's important for us to get comfortable ourselves, study in the groove, and then see what the competition is doing after that. So we kind of want to run our own race in the beginning, and then see what they're doing and get up in the pack.
Spirit of Norway now heading out after recovery, having dispensed with the Ohio Steel V-hull boat, and now it looks like the two catamarans getting ready to set up for battle, as Shell Roki is now stalking the recovery boat out in front. Nick Casula versus Shell Roki, and that is going to be a very interesting race.
The battle you can see, Spirit of Norway versus Recovery. The battle you can't see is a little private war. Last season, Jim Dyke, the throttle man on Spirit of Norway, he was in the cockpit with Russ Wilkin in the Powerboat Marine Superboat. He'd kind of like to send a message, if he gets a chance, that this open boat, under the right conditions, can run with Powerboat Marine. Let's see if it happens.
Nick Casula wheeling the recovery boat out in front, would like nothing better than to keep that private battle from happening. Here is Recovery leading Spirit of Norway, Ohio Steel in the V-hull, still running third. A great battle shaping up between these open class boats as they are in the open ocean, heading back towards the Gulf of Mexico. You stay with us, because we'll be right back. Welcome back to the calm blue waters just off Marathon in the heart of the Florida Keys. You're looking at the overall and super boat leader, Powerboat Marine, Russ Wilkin and Tony Caligiuri. They throttled back just a little bit. They know that Joe Mock is in trouble. They're still trying to put as much open water as they can between themselves and that big, fast, red boat. Well, they're heading back into the Gulf of Mexico. These guys race in open water. How do they tell where they're going?
Even though they've changed the style of offshore racing in the modern era from long-distance endurance events to more of a lap-style racing, navigation still plays a very key and critical role. Here in the cockpit of the NXS, we can take a look at some of the tools that the navigator uses. First of all, up on the dash, there's very large Danforth compasses in front of the driver and in front of the navigator. The teams replace the normal oil that's used inside of these compasses with a much higher viscosity oil. What that does is it increases the dampening characteristics of the compass. It means that the card doesn't swivel quite as much in rough water so that they can take a more accurate reading. Also on the dash, the offshore race teams use the latest in navigational equipment, electronic navigation, Trimble navigation, GPS systems. There's 2 of them on the dash. They help with Loran-style tracking. On the dash, they have a picture of the race course. Every checkpoint is marked out with the direction that you have to pass the turnboats on. It also has the compass headings that the driver will take and the time that it takes to go from one checkpoint to the other. To track time inside the cockpit, the navigator uses a pair of stopwatches. One of the stopwatches is used for split times between the navigation buoys. The other one is used for an overall time so that the team can tell where they stand in relation to their average speed throughout the race. And then probably the final and most important ingredient on the dash, there are 7 duct tape stickers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These are used for each one of the laps. As they pass the start-finish boat at the completion of each lap, they pull off one of these little checkpoints so they'll know how much more time they have to go.
Well, with all the high-tech gear on board of one of these boats, it still comes down to being able to count how many laps there are left in the race. We're in the 4th lap of a total of 7 right now, and there's your leader, Powerboat Marine. But look at this, Dirty Laundry. They're definitely having problems right now. We saw a little bit of it earlier, but they are out of the race along with a pair of boats in the open class.
Dirty Laundry, they got problems here in Marathon. They also have to start thinking about their standings overall in the season. This is the 2nd race in a row that they're going to end with a DNF. If Powerboat Marine holds on to the win, they're going to have over 500 points in the bank with just 6 races to go. Dirty Laundry, they've got some ground to make up when we go to Sarasota, the next stop on the tour.
Here's another one of the V-hull boats. Ted Savarese, the owner-driver. Trace Martin on the gas sticks. His brother Rick Savarese is in the boat as well. This is a new program.
I had bought a 41-foot Apache back in September. Went about 75 miles an hour. After about 2 months, I decided I wanted to go a little bit faster, so I bought this boat a few weeks ago, and this boat had been running this racing circuit, so we just thought we'd give it a try.
Well, welcome to the big time for Ted and Rick Savarese, but they're in good hands with veteran throttle man Trace Martin at the gas sticks.
Brian, an interesting matchup here, and it really gives you a perspective on the differences between a V-bottom hull and a cat. Right now, what you see there at the top of your screen are a couple of Pro 1 32-foot skaters with outboard power actually running speeds very comparable to the super V-bottom boats. The idea in offshore racing is the least amount of boat in the water, that's what gives you the most speed. And as you can see here on these big V-bottoms, they're drafting a lot of water as they go hippity-hop through the waves. The catamarans, they're packing air underneath the boat, literally flying over the top. So what you've got here is a battle of a very small, lightweight boat against a very heavy, very high, powerful V-bottom, and right now, they're fairly evenly matched.
The Apache Kid, that's Al Feingold. Jerry Davis, 3rd man on the boat, is Bobby Horn. These guys out there in the open water, they wouldn't really expect to be battling with Pro 1 class boats, but that's the way it's going under these smooth conditions.
You'd see a whole different picture right now if we were running in 4, 5, or 6 foot seas, but right now, with just a very light wind chop on the water, it's actually ideal for the catamarans. As you can see here with Spirit of Norway, he's getting ready to make a move on recovery. Is this the time right now when Jim Dyke wants to go into the lead? What's the game here?
Well, Spirit of Norway, Shell Roki driving the boat. Jim Dyke is throttling them right past the recovery boat there, and they made it look awful easy, Mark, getting right by him.
You got to wonder what's going through the mind of Joey Impressor right here, right now. Last year, he was the throttle man for Alan Shapiro in the AES Motorsports, and a couple of times last year, he made a decision to let Joe Mock in the Dirty Laundry get by him, a decision he eventually regretted because he was never able to make up the time. A couple of times, though, he also went right to the front and tried to stay there and blew up some engines. So right now, you got to wonder what Joey Impressor's strategy is. Does he let Spirit of the Norway go, or does he try to keep a run on him, or is it just a matter of Spirit of the Norway has more speed?
And here's the race for 3rd and 4th behind those 2 catamarans. Reggie Fountain in the V-hull Ohio Steel is leading Tom Slameka and Dave Cutler in the hyperactive catamaran.
The Fountain V-bottom left a calling card in Cocoa Beach in the rough water, and they're leaving another one here in Marathon in the smooth water. This boat is just turning an amazing performance. Both of these hulls are running triple-digit speeds up. tough break for Ohio Steel. Their chance of making a little more history today, Brian, it looks like it's over.
Well, they're having some kind of problem back there, slowing down. Tom Slameka now moves into 3rd place in the red and white hyperactive boat. Here's a guy that, well, he's doing a good job out here today, but in the first lap of the race last year, he made some history himself, and it wasn't the kind that anybody would like to make. Let's take a look. This is last year's event, the very first lap. Running good, get it in the air, down, and that boat is garbage.
This is the game of offshore racing. 1 minute you're booking along at 105 miles an hour, you hit a little wave, the boat goes airborne, and then wham, you're dead stop with a face full of water.
Tom Slameka and Dave Cutler making everybody's highlight reel a year ago here in Marathon. This is not the way they wanted their day to go at all. Looks like a yard sale. Pieces of the boat all over the place. Then it goes upside down and in the water. Let's take another look at just what happened.
The boat launches 20 feet in the air. The transom comes in first, and then the bow stops. A wild ride for Tom Slameka.
I think, we have kind of a grudge against Marathon in that last year we were the boat that didn't make it the first lap. We were doing quite well. Caught an itinerant wave, stuffed the boat, tore the front pickle off on the throttleman side, and fortunately no one was hurt severely long term, but my throttleman David spent 4.5 days in intensive care. Everything is fine, so we have something to prove in Marathon.
And there he is, Tom Slameka, Dave Cutler solidly in 3rd place, even though they inherited that. They're just under a minute behind the 2 lead boats, trying to make up some water. Here's the Budweiser boat. Now, these guys had trouble right off the starting flag. They flooded the motors, and they've been trying to get it going ever since. But now they have really lit a candle under this boat, and that red 37-foot Cougar is hauling.
The first 3 boats in the open class are all Douglas skaters made here in the United States. This is a Cougar catamaran made over in England. It's a much wider boat with a much broader tunnel. They really like the flat water here in Marathon. Right now, they're turning the fastest lap times on the race course, including times faster than Powerboat Marine, the superboat leader, as they make a big-time move by Craig Berry in the Hawk.
Here's the Intrepid, the only diesel-powered boat in the race. Mark Beaver, Yoshiro Katami, Tim Brunt, the navigator, the 3rd man in the cockpit. A dependable boat, even though it's not quite as fast. John Revitt and Reggie Fountain, Ohio Steel, having their troubles a while ago, lost 3rd place to Hyperactive, and here they look like they're moving at least.
Spirit of Norway, the open class leader right now, Jim Dyke and Shell Roki have turned the wick up just a little bit. 100.51 miles an hour. Right now, they're turning a little bit faster lap time than Tony Caligieri and Russ Wilson, the Powerboat Marine. Could it be that they can make a move on the superboats?
We'll find out shortly. We're coming right back. You're looking at the overall and superboat leader, Powerboat Marine, out in front in smooth water. Now, some of you might be a little bit new to offshore powerboat racing, so we're going to open up the textbook with our senior correspondent, Jim Hendrick, Offshore 101.
The last time we looked at the traditional deep fee haul and its application to not only powerboat racing, but pleasure boating as well. Now, today we're going to take a look at the catamaran, that revolutionary new design that has propelled us into the modern era of offshore racing. On the most basic level, the Cat works on an airlift principle. 2 separate hulls or sponsons are connected by a wing, which creates lift, causing the boat to literally fly over the water. The wing also compresses air as it passes through the tunnel, which causes further lifting of the boat, creating less friction and wetted surface, therefore less drag and a faster ride. From cat to cat, the tunnels formed by the wingspan across each sponson vary in depth and width. Many designs get narrower in the stern to create even more lift aft, which compensates for the added weight of the engine and drives. Just as the catamaran hull is unique, so are its ride characteristics. In rough water, they tend to ride much flatter than the V-bottom. This is due mainly to the cushion of air created by the lifting wing. In turns, they slide around those pins, as opposed to leaning through the corners, as the monohulls do, because there is no centered field to pivot on. Originally, it was assumed that the traditional V-bottom design with its knife-like running surface was superior to the catamaran in rough water, but time has proven otherwise. In recent years, the catamarans have proven comparable to the V-bottoms in heavy seas. In 1990, the 50-foot Spirit of Amazon Cougar won what is considered to be the roughest race in OPT history on 6 to 8 foot seas on a stormy Lake Michigan. When it comes to sheer speed on the water, the Cats have no equal. Catamaran designs hold all the world's offshore speed records, highlighted by Tom Gentry's 1987 clocking of 147.238 in the Gentry Turbo Eagle Superboat. It is this natural ability for speed that has brought the Catamaran to the forefront in racing circles. The Catamaran, the ultimate offshore machine, bred for racing, built for speed.
It's a catamaran that leads them all right now. The Superboat and overall leader, Russ Wilkin and Tony Caliguri in Power Boat Marine. The only twin-engine boat in the Superboat class getting ready to pass under the 7-mile bridge one more time. And the motorists driving north and south through the Florida Keys getting a little bit of an extra bonus watching offshore powerboat racing out the windows of their cars. But what is a guy doing in the ocean that comes from the middle of the country? I mean, this is a place where Nolan Ryan couldn't hit an ocean with a rock if he wanted to. Well, Russ Wilkin runs Precision Soya. It is one of the world's largest providers of agricultural seed products. He grows seed corn and soybeans out in America's heartland. That's what he does in real life, but for fun on weekends, well, he flies out to the oceans on one side of the country or another and races his powerful offshore machine. Picked up his first win in San Diego in 1991, looking good for another one here today.
A pair of supercharged 1,000-horsepower Merc Cruisers propelling Powerboat Marine to the lead.
Here's Apache Kid. They're dead in the water with the hatch open, and it looks like Jerry Davis crawling around inside trying to make some repairs. They had a similar problem in Cocoa Beach, but they were able to get it going again. Let's hope he has better luck like he did in Cocoa and getting this boat back in the race.
No pit stops in offshore racing. When you got a problem, you got to make repairs right out at sea. You lift the engine hatch covers up, crawl around in the engine compartment, see what you can do to get the Band-Aids on, get this boat running again.
So while Apache Kid tries to get their problems repaired, second place in the Superboat class and V-Hull leader becomes Ted and Rick Savarese. They're happy about that in the NXS boat. Here we are on board Spirit of Norway in the open class division. They're looking at open water out in front as well.
5 laps into the race and the battle in the open class continues. Spirit of Norway, Jim Dyke and Shell Roki, they're booking right now at close to 100 miles an hour, and even at that speed, they can't shake Joey Impressia and Sick Nick in the recovery.
Only 6 seconds behind Spirit of Norway, the white boat called Recovery. These guys, a real head-to-head battle going on in this open class. Just 6 seconds separating first and second place out here, and they're getting a wild ride. Hyperactive. The wake doesn't look quite right behind that boat, Mark.
When you see spray coming off the back of a catamaran like that, you know the boat's not running at full power. They're breaking a lot of water forward. They got a problem in the engine compartment of Hyperactive.
Running third after starting dead last, Hugo Colombo's got to love the attrition, and for throttle man Jeff Soper, he's just bolted them wide open.
Yeah, well, I think today, I mean, as the water as flat as it is, the throttle man will not probably, I mean, once you get the boat set up right, I think the driving is really going to be a key in here, because if you make a mistake, these boats are all within 2-3 miles an hour of each other, especially in the Pro Stock class, and our class especially. And I think driving is a big thing today, keeping the boat on course and staying off the sandbars.
Hugo Colombo and Jeff Soper probably wishing this race was a little bit longer. Here once again, looking out of the Everglades Marina Pace Boat where it has taken up its position after starting the race. We're looking at the diesel-powered Intrepid. These guys not running as fast, certainly, as Budweiser, Spirit of Norway. And here's some problems with Ohio Steel. This is a fellow that said early in the race he wanted to blow up the other guy's motors. It looks like his plan has backfired.
The flat water here in Marathon continues to take its toll. Brian, what happens in an offshore race when the water's rough? Every time the boat leaves the water, the throttleman has to throttle back. He gets off the gas, which gives the engines a chance to breathe, to sort of recover. In the smooth water, you just leave the throttles pinned, so the engines stay at high RPM all day long. It can cause all kinds of problems when you're running in 100-degree heat with humidity to match.
Well, boats continue to be dragged back to shore, some of them able to make it back like Ohio Steel under its own power, others Cigarette Hawk getting towed in. Here's Hyperactive dead in the water. Well, 2 years in a row, this place has not been kind to them. At least their boat is all in one piece this year, but they're out of the race. And as we continue to look at the Superboat leader, Powerboat Marine having absolutely no trouble and getting a helicopter escort as well. Everybody loves a winner, and they all want to get close and take a better look. Russ Wilkin and Tony Caliguri having no problem leading the superboat class. Only one other boat still running. Spirit of Norway, though, they've still got a fight on their hands against Recovery and the fast-moving Budweiser boat. A lot more yet to come. Stay with us. We're also going to peek in on the Pro 1 class being led by a female driver. Stay with us. This portion of the 1992 Marathon Offshore Challenge is sponsored by the Florida Keys and Key West. Now is the time to just let go in the Keys. And we're looking at our leader overall and in the superboat class, Powerboat Marine, continuing to show their transom to everybody in the entire field, regardless of what class they're racing in. These fellas running smooth, running well, but not quite as fast as Spirit of Norway in the open class. They gave up some ground early in the race, but they have really been running hard.
Interesting phenomenon in offshore racing. When you think about the great throttlemen in the sport, you think about guys like Smitty Smith, who's in the Dirty Laundry, Richie Powers, who's in the Labatt's, Bobby Idoni, Bobby Moore. All these guys have 20, 25 years of experience in offshore racing. We're starting to see a little bit of a changing of the guard, sort of a new breed. Guys like Tony Caliguri, Trace Martin, Jim Dyke, Joey and Prussia, a whole new generation of throttlemen. They got a point to prove, and if you look here in Marathon, they're winning the battle. New throttlemen, the new generation of throttlemen, if you will, Brian, running first and second in Superboat and running first and second in Open Class.
The new guys may be winning the battle, but this long war is 8 races that are over the entire season. And, well, we have yet to hear from guys like Smitty Smith and Richie Powers. By the way, Bob Idoni and Bobby Moore aren't in this race. They will compete through the course of the year. Here is the Pro 1 battle between Tough Enough and Motion Power boats on the far side. Now we got a husband and wife team in the Tough Enough boat, and the Motion Hull of Motion Power boats is the only one in this race.
Let's take a look at the Pro 1 division. The boats measure between 30, 32, 33 feet in length. All of them use outboard power. The engines are mounted directly on the transom. They all run Mercury engines. The boats are very comparably equipped. They run very similar speeds. What makes the difference between winning and losing is usually the driver's ability, the throttle man's ability, and setup. Where they put the engines, what kind of propellers they use, how they position the weight load inside the boat.
A very close race going on right here. Dana Weigel driving, Mark Weigel, her husband, on the throttle of the Tough Enough boat, and Motion Power boats making their move out there. Joe Jacobson and Eddie Shear, they have now moved out in front.
Some consider this the proving ground or the training course for running in the bigger boats. And while that's true, Brian, this is also very serious offshore racing. These boats are capable of speeds well in excess of 100 miles an hour. And because the engines are mounted on the transom, the center of gravity in these boats is a lot further aft than it is on the inboard powered boats, which makes them a lot trickier and a lot tougher to drive. They're also lighter weight. So whenever they hit a wave, wham, they're going to be airborne. The driver and the throttle man constantly have to be monitoring the trim of the boat, trying to get maximum speed, trying to get maximum efficiency, but also trying to keep things safe.
Spirit of Houston running third right now. These boats doing a very fine race and very tight action. Here's Ocean Outboard. They're also in it. Most of them catamarans.
As you look at the boats, they have the same enclosed canopies that you see on the open and the super boats. The drivers wear the same 5-point restraint harnesses. They go to the same drivers meetings. They do the same safety courses. The only difference really is when the water gets really tough, these lighter boats, these smaller boats, just can't compete with the bigger and the super and open boats. When the water's smooth, there's really only about a 10 or a 15 mile an hour difference between these outboards and some of the big inboards.
The attrition rate much lower in the Pro 1 class. Most of these boats still running and running extremely well, while the big boats have been having their trouble. But no such problem for Russ Wilkin and Tony Caliguri in Powerboat Marine. They are way out in front. Stay with us. We'll be right back looking at the Spirit of Norway coming up. There's a natural connection between NASCAR and Daytona, between open wheel racing in Indianapolis, sports cars and Le Mans, powerboat racing and the Florida Keys.
Well, we in the Florida Keys have been very interested in powerboat racing for many, many years. And it's an ideal place to race, and we are very fortunate to have these people come down. The people down here are very excited about it, and I think you'll see before the day's over the support that they get for it.
Florida Keys Offshore Racing's #1 race place as we get ready for checkered flag time in the Pro 1 division. Tough Enough, averaging just under 87 miles an hour. They're going to win Pro 1, just ahead of Motion Power boats.
This one's got to be awful, awful sweet.
Oh, it sure is. We've been waiting a long time for this one, and sitting back in the back watching everybody else get the checker flag and OPT has been frustrating, but man, we're here now, and it's going to be tough to beat us.
Actually, a four-man crew inside of Tough Enough. Tuffy and Fluffy, the stuffed animals, go with the Weigels every time they race. As we look at the point standings here in Pro 1, Motion Powerboat's out in front overall, but Tough Enough, they're gaining some ground.
And it looks like Mark is going to take Dana for the traditional bath. She drove the boat, and now she's getting in the water herself. Our congratulations to the husband and wife team driving Tough Enough to victory here in the Florida Keys. Back to the racing action of the Superboat division. The big boat still getting it done out there on the open water. These fellas not looking back at all as Russ Wilkin, Tony Caligari, he's probably eating a sandwich right now. He's just locked the throttles down on the good setting and letting it rip.
Early in the race, Brian, we took an up-close and personal look at Russ Wilkin, looking at his bio sheet. He lists his hobbies as reading. The favorite kind of music is classical, but this is what I love. His favorite book is The Goal. His favorite movie, The Sting, and that's exactly what he's doing out here in Marathon today.
Putting the sting on the rest of the field in the Superboat class and overall, but here's Spirit of Norway running wide open as well. They have dispensed with recovery, and they are moving on. Here's the second place boat, Nick Casula, Joey Impressia. Just not quite as much horsepower or whatever, because Shell Roki and Jim Dyke have left them behind.
If things stay just as they are, this will be the second race in a row that Recovery chased Spirit of Norway across the finish line.
And who knows, if it hadn't been for a little bit of bad luck at the start, these guys might be the ones in contention for a checkered flag. Ugo Colombo and Jeff Sofer in third place right now in the open class.
How do you do in the open class? Intrepid, Mark Beaver and Yoshiro Katami, this diesel-powered boat. When they set it up at the beginning of the race, the engines run around 3,000, 4,000 RPM. They run all day. The attrition game worked perfect for them.
Well, these are the boats that are out of the race. We're still looking at a lot of competition in the race, but all of it in the wake of Powerboat Marine as Russ Wilkins continues to run out in front. Well, you're a part of the spectator fleet here in Marathon. You stay right with us because we're coming back in a moment. Welcome back to the closing laps of our second stop in the Offshore Professional Tour. Russ Wilkin and Tony Caligari, we've had a lot of looks at these guys out in front in Powerboat Marine. And here's In Excess running in second spot. Ted and Rick Savarese, the throttle man Trace Martin, just not able to make up any water on the flying catamaran out in front. Now we're going to peel away for just a moment and take a little bit of a closer look at what goes on around here when they're not racing offshore. Here's our senior correspondent, Jim Hendrick.
The Florida Keys and Key West. Unlike any other place in the world, these isles have a certain attitude and lifestyle all their own. Key Largo, just 45 miles south of Miami, encompasses the world-famous John Pennekamp Coral Reef State Park. This is the only living coral reef in North America, and it's a diver's heaven. Isla Mirada, just south of Key Largo, is best known as the sports fishing capital of the world. Marathon is located right in the center of the Keys chain, with almost every activity under the sun. Marathon is appropriately the heart and soul of the Florida Keys. Now south of Marathon lies the unspoiled isles and waterways of the lower Keys, with much of the area protected in sanctuaries. Then there's Key West, at the southernmost tip of the Keys. This island is filled with many reminders of its colorful past, from Spanish adventurers and treasure hunters to presidents, artists, and writers. Key West is odd and eccentric, bold and curious, where every sunset is met with a carnival of life. From Key Largo to Key West, these are the Isles of America's Caribbean, the Florida Keys and Key West.
The roar of the powerful motors, contrasting sharply with the tranquility and peace and quiet here in the Florida Keys. Couldn't find a better place to enjoy an offshore powerboat race. Open class leader continues to be Spirit of Norway, while Powerboat Marine runs out in front of everybody. These guys are still roaring, putting down the fastest speeds of anybody. Recovery boat running in second spot in the open class behind Spirit of Norway have not been able to make up any ground. They're trying to hold steady in the number 2 spot. Meanwhile, Budweiser continues to be the story of the day as these guys are roaring up. They can't make up any ground. They just lost too much time at the start of the race. Intrepid, the diesel-powered boat, slow and steady, is doing the job for them, running fourth.
Spirit of Norway, a picture of consistency out in front in the open class. Here's his average lap speeds all day. 96, 98, 99, 100, 99, 99, 98. He hasn't left that triple-digit mark all afternoon. A big day for Merc Cruiser. Spirit of Norway, 800-plus Merc Cruiser engines in the transom. Powerboat Marine, a set of 1,000 SC Merc Cruisers. This boat is built and maintained at Mercury's secret proving grounds at Lake X. Big day for Merc Cruiser.
Well, all that's left is to bring them home, and we're going to do that when we come back. Well, it's just about all over but the shouting here in Marathon, the moment they've been waiting for. They can uncross their fingers because it's going to hold together and get ready to put their fists in the air and celebrate the checkered flag. Powerboat Marine coming home.
Powerboat Marine, they went to the early lead, had a stiff challenge from Dirty Laundry, but they fended it off, posted the win at 99.96. And Brian, if you look at number 5 spot, Cobra Power, he didn't start the race. You gotta wonder what would have happened out there today if Dan Campbell had made the show.
And in the open class, Spirit of Norway, they waited a while to take the lead. Once they did, they didn't give it up.
Shell Roki, he vowed that this was going to be his year in offshore racing, and I think he's experiencing results he never even dreamed possible. This is 2 wins in a row for Jim Dyke and Shell Roki. The Spirit of Norway, average speed 98.77 miles an hour, just a tick behind Russ Wilkin in the Superboat class. The sun's shining, the water is flat calm. It's been that way all afternoon. Down in the pits, they're popping champagne and waving checkered flags. Let's go down to Brian.
Well, conditions were right. Mercury Marine did some excellent preparation. The boys at Lake X and our crew chief, Andrew Engel, and the boat ran flawlessly. They made our job easy.
It was pretty hot out there. Was fatigue at all a problem? Did you guys get tired, or is it when you're running out front, everything looks good, huh?
Right now I'm thinking about tired when you're running out there. It never really comes in your mind when you're out there.
The first of what I'm sure will be many wins in 1992 for the Powerboat Marine team. They lead the Superboat points chase, a couple of big V-bottoms in second and third, and then Dirty Laundry, they got some ground to make up. Big smiles in the Superboat pits, and equally big smiles with the open class.
Shell, hot day, but you guys are pretty cool customers out there.
Yes, it felt fine out there today, and Jim did an excellent job, and I'm happy that we won today. It feels great.
Jimmy's giving you quick credit out there. Just how tough was it?
Well, you know, that's an easy thing for Shell to do. He does that quite often. He's a great owner to work for. The guys, Mike and Lori, did a heck of a job. Carmen, the truck driver, Dan, everybody involved in the team did a wonderful job. Merc Cruiser. We're real happy to be back in Marathon, and you know, I can't say enough about the people that support us, like the Tourist Developmental Council, and we ran a good race. You know, I'm not going to take anything away from our team.
Spirit of Norway, back-to-back wins, and yet they only have a 102-point lead over Recovery. Budweiser's in third, and then Ohio Steel and Intrepid, they're tied for fourth.
Next stop, it's the Suncoast Offshore Grand Prix as we move up the Gulf Coast to Sarasota. Fast water here in Marathon. It's going to be even faster as we get to the third stop on the Offshore Professional Tour. All the records have been set in Sarasota. We hope you enjoyed the show. For Mark Spencer and Jim Hendrick, this is Brian Drever saying so long from Marathon. This telecast of the 1992 Marathon Offshore Challenge has been sponsored by the Florida Keys and Key West. Now is the time to just let go in the Keys. And by Ohio Steel Sheet and Plate, your hot-rolled steel specialist with a commitment to excellence. And by Budweiser, the king of beers. With that clean, crisp, cold taste, nothing beats a Bud. A promotional consideration has been provided by Faro Blanco Marine Resort, offering casual to luxurious accommodations, sumptuous dining, and a full-service marina facility. Faro Blanco Marine Resort. This has been a production of Cypress Sports in association with ESPN. Hello, I'm Brian Drever in the beautiful Florida Keys. Join us later as offshore powerboats battle it out in the OPT Marathon Offshore Challenge. That's coming up later here on ESPN. The men and machines of the Offshore Pro Tour are here in the Florida Keys to match themselves against the sea. I'm Brian Drever. Join us for all the exciting action of the Marathon Offshore Challenge next on ESPN.